Well, if you live in the GTA or actually Ontario in general, real estate prices inevitably work their way into just about every conversation. Is it a bubble? How much more will it go up? Will I ever be able to afford to buy, or can I afford to keep my home? Well, joining us this evening is a man whose life's work centers around these dilemmas. He has developed some solutions. Guy Solomon, president of Penguin Basements, a leading full-service basement renovation company, has some game-changing advice. Convert your unused basement space into an income-generating second suite. Welcome to What She Said.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about, when you started your company and why. Had you sort of seen the writing on the residential wall, as it was?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the GTA, you kind of see the trend line, and there's a lot of houses being built. So I saw an opportunity to create, just extra living space and affordable housing. Then over the last few years, I've seen, the red hot market for the last 3 or 4 years. So I decided, if we transition a bit more towards the income suites, it helps make houses more affordable, really, for everyone.
Well, the other thing, too, is we're talking about the lack of rental properties available. And, the government is concerned about people buying condos that are sitting unused or homes sitting unused. And this would alleviate that.
Yeah, of course. Adding to the rental pool is key, right? I think that's one of the Liberal government's initiatives right now, is to try to, add to the rental pool. And, every basement typically can be added to the rental pool if you're not utilizing it well. So it does allow people to live in desirable neighborhoods, people that low income or, young professionals, and there's different opportunities for them. And to live on low-rise buildings where you can use some of the land, you don't have to wait for elevators. There's some benefits to living within a single-family home. So yeah, it affords them that opportunity as well.
What is the checklist that you put in front of people who are trying to make that decision?
If they currently own their home or if they're in the process of buying, one of the things is to always look at what are the potential rental rates within their neighborhoods, and then kind of buying a house that's conducive to a rental unit. Now, I'm not as concerned when it comes to Toronto for zoning, because there's so many houses that you can get, most of the homes you can get zoning approval. It's more about, what elements of the home are currently there that can minimize the cost of construction. For example, separate entrance, side entrance, or if the ceiling height is height appropriate.
Say ceiling height, because what does it cost to underpin a house?
It varies. It's obviously it's substantive work, but generally speaking, we use a rule of thumb about $500 a linear foot around the perimeter. It helps people understand basically what the cost can be. But if their ceiling is about 2.05 meters, so about 6'9". You can use a measuring tape if its finished height's there for 75% of the space. You're okay. Or 6'5" for 100% of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, is it a good investment? Because I think people worry that somehow it's going to devalue their house. That would be my first instinct.
Yeah, it always depends on what the goals are. When you look at the rental income, usually you're getting about a third to 40% of the rental in the basement that you are for the house itself. And so you kind of evaluate, what's the rental income to what the cost is. The big thing is to see, if you are financing the renovation. So typically if you add, let's say, a $75,000 renovation as an average, and you add that to a conventional mortgage, it's about $300 a month. If you then get rental rates of $1,200 to $1,500 for a 1 to 2 bedroom rental unit, you can see that immediately it produces a little bit of extra cash for the homeowner, and it increases the long-term value of the home. The other thing about a basement apartment... Does
it, though?
Yeah.
Increase the long-term value?
Yeah, because what it's doing is it's making the house self-sufficient, right? Because if you're adding $300 in expenses and then you're increasing your revenue by $1,200 to $1,500, it makes the house more conducive to renting out top and bottom, moving on in the future. It solves a lot of problems both for, millennials trying to get into neighborhoods and baby boomers trying to figure out what they do with their empty nester, as they call them, empty nesters, and what to do with all that extra square footage. So it gives them not only an opportunity to sell the home and show that income, but it's also an opportunity to keep the home and rent it out and continue to grow.
Well, I think for my children, I've suggested doing something like this, like helping them out. But I'm saying you're living in the basement apartment and renting up the upstairs until you can afford to switch.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion. I find a lot of homeowners that I speak to, they're pretty nervous about their kids being able to afford a house. Mm-hmm. So, if they have the equity in their home or a little bit of savings, they can help their kids buy that first home. Obviously the rent on the main floor will go a long way to make the house affordable in the long run. And when they're ready, like you said, they'll make the switch. They'll move their family upstairs as they grow into it and collect the rental income from the basement. So it's a great way to get into the market, even though it is red hot like it is today. But
also for growing a little bit of equity.
Yeah.
Because you start off with the minimum and over time.
Yeah. You're generally paying off a mortgage at about 2 to 2.5% of the actual mortgage itself per year. And if appreciation even slows down to 5 to 7%, it's still a considerable amount of equity you're building every year.
Now, when you talk to people, which generation is the most reluctant or the most eager to do this? Who are the ones you have to convince?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Pretty much anybody my parents' age. So any baby boomers, the first thing, the kryptonite to the conversation is debt. There's a conversation, and I understand why. I get, they've been through a couple of recessions, and when you've done that and you've seen, interest rates in the teens, you're kind of conditioned to pay off your mortgage. Now, for millennials like myself, to hear an interest rate anything more than 4% sounds like we've done something almost wrong. So I think that millennials are pretty easy to convince because they need it and they need to be able to afford the homes, and they're okay with sharing, the same footprint or lot and renting out the basement. But it's really always comes down to whether or not the homeowner or the potential homeowner sees it as a need or a want. And our argument is that you do need the extra income. It does help pay off the mortgage sooner. Like a typical rental unit, once you've paid it off and you collect the rental income, can pay a mortgage off about 9.5 to 11 years sooner. So 10 years if you take the extra income and drop it directly into your principal. So it has so many benefits to it in the short and long term.
Well, I think millennials are more like Europeans. I think Kate would agree with me. In big cities in Europe, nobody expects to own a home with a yard. I mean, they're living often with family and much less footprint. And now they're living in 700 square foot condos in downtown Toronto.
Absolutely.
So you're right. It is our generation who think that we need 4,000 square feet and an acre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to reduce my size because I don't like cleaning that. We downsized, and we have a basement apartment, but I don't want to. I don't want to do the underpinning. So we still have, because it was a typical basement, we've still got pipes and things going across what is now the laundry room / kitchen. But there is a stove and everything down there, so my millennial kids can come back home. But I said, this isn't so bad. We could put it on Airbnb or VRBO for a couple of nights. We're close to a couple of universities, that kind of thing. If you've just got the basics and a separate entrance, then you're okay. But there's also the parking issue. Is that a big deal when people are looking to do renovations? It
always depends on the municipality. So every municipality, we work in all the municipalities throughout the GTA and even the extended GTA. But every municipality has different rules. Some of them, you don't need parking at all. And sometimes you need 3-car parking just in the driveway alone. So in terms of Toronto, I wouldn't be so worried about parking because it's pretty easy to work with. Some municipalities are a little bit harder, but that's where we go to committee of adjustments and we try to, make an argument for why the parking isn't necessary. And we try to help our clients out to make it feasible. The other thing I want to add is when you have a little bit of a bigger footprint, a home that's, let's say, 2,500 square feet or bigger, a lot of my clients, what they're looking at, especially in the city, is creating a rental unit, but separate to that, retaining some space for themselves. It could be 300, it could be 700 square feet, whether they use it for their family or Airbnb that section while renting out the other section. These are people that are seeing over $2,000 in income just from their basement.
Wow.
Because they're renting it separately.
What is the average rental cost?
Yeah, it's a good question. So assuming we don't have to do major structural, like underpinning we mentioned, and a separate entrance, we've seen basement apartments anywhere from about $60,000 to $80,000, done perfectly legally, fire separation, kitchens, the whole thing.
Well, Guy, for anyone interested, how can they reach you?
They can check us out on basementscanada.com or give us a call through our phone number, 416-633-7180, and just reach out, social media as well, and we'll try to help them out as well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
This is What She Said. Stay with us.